Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to be making a tutorial on this Maisie top pattern that I designed. So recently I've been seeing a ton of raglan tops circulating the internet, so I thought I would give it a try and make a similar pattern. I want to start by saying this pattern is pretty much beginner friendly, but I will put up the stitches that I used in this top on the screen so you guys can kind of gauge the difficulty. Also throughout this pattern, I'm going to be explaining the chain numbers and measurements that I use for a size small, but I will also explain how you can adjust the pattern to fit any size. So the first step of this top is to pick out your color scheme. So for this top, I chose I think 7 colors, and I think for the one for this video, I'm going to be using 5. So I'd recommend anywhere between 5 to 8 colors. And as I was creating this top, I didn't follow a specific color sequence. I kind of wanted it to look a bit random and less uniformed, and I also would throw in like 2 rows of the same color back to back randomly. So just keep that in mind. If you want it to be super uniformed and exact, you can just follow the same color order and do 1 row each. But again, I kind of just mixed it up a little bit, and I will show you that as I'm creating the top. Also, when you're picking out your color scheme, keep in mind you're gonna need a border color for the ribbing and kind of the edging here. Before I get into the tutorial, I do want to point out that the buttons are optional. You could use like lace or yarn to just tie up the front if you want, if you don't know how to sew on buttons or you don't want to go out and buy some. It's completely fine. Again, I think the laces would be really cute. Also for the buttons, Okay, as I was saying, for the buttons, I obviously just did the one up here at the top, but you could do as many as you want all the way down. Me personally, I just like doing the top and leaving the cardigan open. So if you have any questions while creating this top, please comment them down below or email me, and I will try my best to answer them as clearly as possible. Alright, so for materials, you first need your yarn. So I'll be using a worsted or medium weight yarn, but I think DK and a weight 3 yarn would work as well. Just keep in mind you'd have to chain a bit more. And then you need a crochet hook. So I'm going to be using a 4mm hook, but really anything around that should be fine. Just keep in mind the smaller hook size you use, the less gaps that there will be in your work. And then next you need obviously scissors, some stitch markers, and then if you choose to do buttons, go ahead and pick those out. And then before we get into the top, you want to pick out your border color. So I think for my top, I'm going to go with this tannish color, and that's the color we're going to be starting with. But to begin, we're going to start by making a slip knot with our border color. And then we're going to be making a chain that loosely sits around our neck, which I'll show you here in a second. And I'm going to start with 80 chains. So I recommend making it a bit loose because it's always a little bit more difficult to work into that starting chain. Alright, so here are my 80 chains. So you kind of want to loosely drape it around your neck to see if it will be able to button, and keep in mind like your yarn will probably stretch a little bit, so it might look a little tight, but for this top that I'm wearing, I ended up doing 85 chains, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and add the 5 to this chain. All right, so once you have your chain, you want to lay it out like this, almost as if it were on with the opening here in the front. And we are going to have to do a little bit of math. It's super simple though. So you first want to take the number of chains that you have and multiply that by 0.3. And if you get a decimal, that's fine. We're just going to have to do a little bit of rounding. So I'm going to round up to 26. So if you divide 26 by 2, that's 13. So you want to go and count that number, 13 chains, here from the beginning. So 1, 2. And then go ahead, and I'm going to be marking that 13th stitch. You want to do that with this side as well. So go ahead and mark that stitch. And then next you want to take your chain length again and multiply it by 0.2. So I got 17, so I'm going to count 17 from this stitch marker and mark that, and then do the same on this side. Alright, and then if you remember from my first calculation, I got 25.5 and I rounded up to 26 to do these sides. Since I rounded up that time, we're going to be rounding down, so I should have 25 here. So I went ahead and checked that, and I do. And these are where we will be putting our increases throughout the pattern. So go ahead and put your hook back on your work, and we're going to chain 2 more for the turning chain. And then in the third stitch from our hook, we're going to make a half double crochet. So to do that, we're going to yarn over, insert our hook through both loops, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3. We're going to continue making 1 half double crochet in each stitch until we reach that first stitch marker. So I just reached that stitch marker, so go ahead and take it out. And to make our increase, we're going to start by making 1 half double crochet in that stitch like normal. And then we're going to chain 1 and make another half double crochet in that same stitch. So there's our increase. Once you finish your increase, go ahead and place your stitch marker back into that chain 1 space that we made. So we're going to be repeating that process through the rest of the chain, making 1 half double crochet in each stitch and then making an increase in the stitch markers, which is again 1 half double crochet, chain 1, 1 half double crochet. So I'll show you that one more time. Alright, so I just reached my next stitch marker, so I'm going to go ahead and take that out and make half double crochet, chain 1, and 1 more half double crochet. And again, place my stitch marker back into that chain 1 space. So I just finished my first row, and I kind of just wanted to show you what it should look like on. So it's going to be kind of hard to see, but you basically want to make sure that these stitch markers are going on either side of your arm. If you can kind of see that. Alright, so I just finished my first row, and I'm going to take my hook out and go ahead and undo this last stitch that I made, because we're going to be changing our colors here in this last stitch. So to do that, you want to start your half double crochet as normal, so yarn over and insert your hook, pull up a loop, and then instead of yarning over and pulling through, you're going to grab your second color, leave a bit of a tail, and we're going to yarn over and pull through all of these loops. And then from there, we're going to chain 2, going to tighten my work, and then going to cut this yarn, leaving a long tail. So rather than weaving in all of my ends at the end of making my top, I'm going to work over the ends. So to do that, I'm just going to lay them flat over these stitches and make my half double crochets over top of them. And we're going to be repeating the same row this whole time. So we're going to be making half double crochets in each stitch and then making our increases, which are again a half double crochet, chain 1, half double crochet. And we're going to do this until we reach the length of our armpit. So for reference, I made 11 rows before I reached my armpit on this top. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then this is where I attach my next row for the sleeve. And again, I want to point out that my color sequence is random and I threw in some 2 rows back to back. So I just reached my first stitch marker. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that out. And to do our increase, we're going to be working into this gap. So we're not going into the actual stitches, we're just going to make our first half double crochet under that chain space. And then make our chain 1, half double crochet, and then place our stitch marker back into that chain 1 space. So I'm going to show you one more time. I'm going to take out the stitch marker, place my hook here into this chain space, make a half double crochet, chain 1, and another half double crochet, and then place my stitch marker back into that chain 1 space. And we're just going to continue these rows until we reach our armpits, so I will come back and show you kind of what that looks like. Alright, so I just finished my 12th row and you can see it's pretty much at my armpit. So my 2 corners just about touch. This is completely up to you. If you want to do another row and have them touch, that's fine. It kind of just depends on how loose you want your sleeves to be. I'm going to stop here on this 12th row. And on the following row, we're going to make a chain that bridges the gap here. So again, it's completely up to you if you want to do another row and make it a bit looser. But for now, I'm going to start on the next row. All right, so we're going to start our next row the same way that we've been doing it throughout this entire pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and change colors. And then we're going to be making half double crochets like we've been doing, but we're going to stop once we reach our first stitch marker. Alright, so I just made it to my first stitch marker, so I'm going to go ahead and take that out. And so this is the end of our increases that we'll be making. So instead of making an increase in the stitch, we're going to start by making just 1 half double crochet. And now we're going to be making the chain for our armpit. So again, if your 2 corners met underneath your armpit, you don't have to make any chains for this step. But if they don't, you're just going to try to guess how many chains you think you might need to bridge that gap. So I'm going to start with 3, and I'll try it on in a minute to see how that looks. But now we want to fold this top like this. And so we can see this will be where our sleeve will go. So now you want to take out this stitch marker. And then we're going to be making a half double crochet in that gap to join this. Like that. So now we're going to be making half double crochets down here until we meet this next stitch marker. But I'm going to try this on first and kind of see if I like how loose this sleeve is. Alright, so I just tried it on and I want it a bit looser, so I'm going to go ahead and add about 2 more chains and then rejoin this. So just keep trying it on until you're happy with how it looks. And now we're just going to make half double crochets until we reach this stitch marker. So I just reached the stitch marker, and now we're just going to be doing the same thing that we did for the other sleeve. So I'm going to make a half double crochet, make my 5 chains, and then I'm going to join and make my other half double crochet here. Now we're just going to turn our work and finish down along this side. Alright, so I just reached the end of the row here, so I'm going to go ahead and switch my colors like usual. And I'm going to do this until I reach the chain. I just made it to my chain, so we're still going to be making half double crochets, but we're only going to be working through this top loop. So I'm going to make my 5, and then I'm going to go ahead and work back over this last row that we made. So we're going to go along here, working through the top loops again on the chain, and then finishing here. So we're basically just skipping this armhole, and we're going to make rows and rows until we get to the length that we want. Okay, so I just finished my last row. I'm pretty happy with the length. I ended up doing a total of 28 rows from my armpit. And if you're someone that blocks their work, I would recommend blocking it before you cut off your last row, because my sweater did get quite a bit longer. So just keep that in mind if you're someone that likes to steam it or block it. So now the next step is we're going to be attaching our yarn to create the rest of our sleeves, keeping in mind that we are going to be adding a ribbing. So that's about how long my ribbing was on this other top, so just kind of account for that as you make your sleeves. But for this top, I ended up making 3 extra rows on the sleeve before doing the ribbing. But I think for this one, I'm probably going to end up doing just 1 or 2 rows. So again, you're going to just want to try it on as we go through the arm sleeves next, to make sure you get the length that you want. Okay, so for the sleeves, I'm going to be following the same color order that I did for the body. So you can see here, the last color I have on the sleeve is the blue, and then I followed on my body with this color. So I'm going to go ahead and attach this yarn to my sleeve. So I'm just going to make a slip knot. And it doesn't really matter which stitch you attach it to, but I like to attach it somewhere around the armpit. So I'm going to be attaching it right here. It's not really a stitch, but I'm going to be putting my hook through there. And then I'm going to chain 2. And even though this is not an actual stitch, I'm just going to go inside and put 1 half double crochet, and I'm also weaving over my end here. And now we're just going to make 1 half double crochet in each of our stitches. Okay, so I just wanted to show you guys what it's looking like right now. So I'm obviously just about to that chain that we had made. So I'm gonna go into this stitch, and then I'm going to skip this little hole here and go into the next stitch. And then for the chains, we're just going to be working through that other loop. So you should only have 1 loop on your hook. So now you can see that the next color is this dark blue. So to switch colors, I'm going to start a slip stitch into the second chain here. So I'm going to insert my hook, trying to get both loops on the hook. And then instead of yarning over and pulling through, I'm going to pick up my next color and finish the slip stitch with that. And then I'm going to go ahead and chain 2 and cut my yarn. And then for my next row, I'm going to be switching directions that I'm working in. So I'm going to turn my work and work in every stitch going in the opposite direction of our last row. Okay, so I'm here at the end, so I'm going to make a half double crochet in this last stitch, and then we're not going to be putting one in this stitch where our blue yarn is attached. So for your sleeves, you basically just want to follow the color sequence and do however many rows that you want, but for me, I think I'm just going to stop with these 2 rows and just start my ribbing. So I'm going to disregard the color sequence and attach my border color to do the ribbing. So I'm going to start my slip stitch and instead attach my border color. And then I'm going to cut this yarn. So to do the ribbing, you want to start by chaining 5. Technically, if you want a thicker ribbing, you can chain more than 5, but I will just be doing 5. And then we're going to chain 1 more for a turning chain. And now we're just going to be working single crochets in the back loop only. So I'm going to go into this stitch, make a single crochet, and then here's my 5th one. And now we're going to slip stitch in the next 2 stitches. So I'm going to go here in this stitch and make a slip stitch, and then do that again. And now I'm going to turn my work so that we are working back up along this, and I'm going to again make single crochets in the back loop only. So I'm going to skip these 2. These are the 2 slip stitches that we just made. I'm going to insert my hook here and make 5 single crochets. At the top, I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and repeat that same process. So I'm going to make single crochets in the back loop only, make 2 slip stitches. Turn my work, skip those first 2 stitches, and again just make my 5 single crochets in the back loop. And we're going to repeat this all the way around the sleeve. Alright, so I'm here at the end, so I'm just going to slip stitch in these last 2 stitches, and I am going to be slip stitching into the stitch where we attached our yarn. And if you just have 1 stitch, that's fine, just slip stitch into whatever that last stitch is. So to join these together, I'm going to fold this in half and insert my hook into the back loop of that first stitch, skipping the 2 slip stitches I made. And then I'm going to put my hook through the front loop of the first stitch on that side and slip stitch them together. So again, I'm going to insert my hook into the back loop and then into the front loop on this other side, which there should only be 1 loop because we worked in the back loop when we made that first row. So it should look like that. So now I'm just going to chain 1 and cut my yarn. And I'm going to repeat the same exact process on the other sleeve. So I'm going to attach my yarn, do my 2 rows, and then add my ribbing onto this other side. Alright, so now we're going to be making the borders along the inside here. So on the side that your buttons are going to go on, we're going to take our border color and attach it to this corner. And then I'm going to go ahead and chain 1. Once you have your yarn attached, we're going to be making a row of single crochets all the way down. And because we did half double crochets for these rows, we're going to be working 1 single crochet in the first row and then 2 single crochets into the side of the next one. And we're just going to repeat that, alternating between 1 and 2 single crochets. Also, I forgot to mention that when you do your row of single crochets, you want to make sure that the good side of your piece is facing you. So when I was crocheting my single crochets, I had this front side of the top facing me rather than working from this side down. So I'm going to turn my work, and in the side of this first row, I'm going to make 1 single crochet, and because these aren't actual stitches, I'm just going to try to get under 2 loops. So there's our first one, and then in the side of this second row, I'm going to be making 2 single crochets. And then again in the next row, I'm going to just make 1. And then 2 into the side of the next one. And we're just going to be repeating this all the way down. So I just finished my row of single crochets and I went ahead and fastened off my yarn. So before I move on to the border on the other side, I'm going to attach my button. So for me, I'm just going to be doing 1 button up here at the top, but again, you can do however many you want. Or again, as I mentioned earlier, if you choose not to do buttons, you can just use lace or ribbon or even yarn and just weave in both sides on either sides of here and just tie up bows down the top. So now I'm going to attach my button, and instead of using thread, I'm just going to use some yarn that I used in this top. So I'm going to be placing it about right here. So I'm going to put my needle through this first hole and leave a bit of a tail. And then I'm going to go through this diagonal one, and then up through this bottom one, and then through this last one. And I'm going to repeat that about 2 more times. And then finally, I'm just going to weave in the 2 ends on the back side. So the last part of this top is just adding the border here on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and take my border color, make a slip knot. And again, I'm attaching it up at this top corner, that way the good side of the top is facing me as I work these single crochets. So we're going to be following the same thing that we did on the other side, making 1 single crochet in one row and then 2 in the next. But we have to also make the hole for the button. I'm going to attach my yarn and chain 1. And make my first single crochet in the side of that first row. So as you're doing this, you want to kind of line up to see where this button needs to go. So now, instead of making 2 single crochets in this next row like I usually would, I'm going to just make 1 and then start making the hole for this button. So this is going to look different for everyone depending on the button size that you have. So for me, I'm going to start by chaining 3. And then I'm going to skip the second one that I would have made into that next row, skip the one in this row, and then skip the first one in that row. So basically, I chained 3, so I'm going to be skipping the next 3 spaces that I would have made those single crochets into. So I'm going to make a single crochet in this row, and then make my 2 in the following row. And I'm going to pause and just try to slide my button through this hole to see if it is big enough and it lines up correctly. And it did. If you notice that yours is too loose or too tight, just go back and chain more or less. And so now I'm just going to continue making my single crochets all the way down. And when I get to the bottom, I'm not going to fasten off just yet. So I just reached the bottom, so now I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work. And I'm going to make another row of single crochets. So just working 1 single crochet in each stitch. So I'm here at my buttonhole now, and because I chained 3 to create that gap, I'm just going to be working 3 single crochets into this hole. So 1, 2, 3, and then I'm just going to work into these last 2 and cut my yarn. So that was the final step of the top. So I'm going to go ahead and just weave in these last few ends and steam my top one more time, and then I will come back for the final reveal. Alright, and here is the final top. So happy with how it turned out. If you find that yours is a little too short for your liking once you're done, it's super easy to just add more rows to the bottom, or I even think adding the rib detail that we put on the sleeves to the bottom would be super cute. So I honestly might add that to my top later on. As always, if you have any questions, please message me. I'd be happy to answer them, and I hope you enjoyed.